How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I think I have said that phrase 6 million times. It's crazy. Anyway, in today's video, I have 3 topics to cover, starting out with the fact that we're getting more PS5 updates and quicker than before. Second on the list, Sony is confused why people don't use rest mode, and I have the answer. And third, the Midnight Black collection is here, and it's pretty exciting. Anyway, let's jump into the first news story here, which is about PS5 updates and why we're seeing so many of them so frequently that actually include new features. So if you've been around the block with PlayStation like I have, you've been playing since the PS1 days, I'm sure you've noticed that this generation for sure, Sony has done a much better job of getting updates out quickly and with meaningful features. We haven't seen a lot of these PS5 updates that are like, we improved performance and security on your console, that don't tell you anything that actually changed. Most of the updates we get not only have one big feature, but a bunch of little ones peppered throughout that actually change the way the console works in a positive way. But one thing that was really interesting to me was how they rolled out the PS5 30th anniversary update that brought along the new themes that are excellent, and I hope they keep them around, because it did not require a firmware update. If you turned on your PS5 on the day that they released, it said a feature update had been installed without actually installing anything. So if you were in rest mode in a game, when you booted the console back up, you would see the game played and you'd get a little notification that said new features have been unlocked. And that apparently comes down to the complete rebuild that they did on the PlayStation operating system. Apparently it didn't change much from the PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, and because of that, it was like a monumental task to actually update the firmware. And when you have that many consoles out there, asking people to do it more than twice a year, they felt would actually degrade the experience. Because if you didn't know, when they release big updates for PlayStation consoles, they stop you from logging into the PlayStation Network until you update. And back then, if you had bad internet and you went to play a game and there's a new firmware update out for your console, your whole night was washed, man. Like, it would take all night to download PS3 and a little bit of the PS4 generation updates for those consoles just to update and install your console. It would just nix the whole night of gaming, and that really sucked. Obviously, things have gotten better. Most people have at least decent internet, and the updates are downloading a lot faster. Wi-Fi chips are better, so things have been kind of ironed out there, and that has resulted in them kind of shifting away from that cadence that they definitely followed at the beginning of the PS5 generation, which was 2 updates a year. You'd get one in the spring, you'd get one in the fall. They'd pack a billion features in, but as we've seen in 2023 and 2024, they've done smaller updates throughout the year that all have one marquee feature and just a couple small ones thrown in. And just like I talked about in the last video, where a small team took it upon themselves to develop the Welcome Hub just because they were passionate about improving the PlayStation ecosystem, that same team, or a bigger team including those people, are the reason we have so many great PlayStation updates this generation. So stuff like 1440p support, that's something that in the past generation, like the PS4, if they shipped it without 1440p support, it probably would have been something that they kicked to the next generation, like the PlayStation 5 to launch with. Or if, like, talking in the right timeline, because they didn't launch with it on the PS5, that's something that in the past would have been punted to the PS6 generation as a feature they know people want, but don't have the time or resources to actually develop. Because of the way that they've changed how these things are made, they're able to do things quicker and on the fly and send out small features without forcing you to be removed from the PSN until you update your console, and that's largely good. The next update we have is that they're going to continue this cadence because they've liked the data that they've collected from it. Obviously, people are happier with their PlayStation console, so going into the PS6 generation, it's going to be just like it is now, where we're going to get more frequent updates with more frequent features a lot more often than we did at the beginning of this generation. So I just wanted to talk about this because it's a clear win that Sony kind of needs right now. I don't think the perception around PlayStation is bad at this point by any means. I think it's largely very good, judging by the fact that people bought PlayStation 5s and there was an increase this holiday season. Despite the pricing on the PS5 Pro being a huge point of criticism, people still seem to be adopting it. I was just talking to my best friend George. There's a great Blu-ray sale for 4K Blu-rays on Amazon right now where you can get 3 for $33. So we were talking about what we were getting and he was like, crap. And those things are still being scalped to hell. Like, he couldn't find one for MSRP anywhere. there, I was like, just check PS Direct. So clearly, you know, the sales have been pretty good for the PS5 Pro, all things considered. Apparently it's outselling the PS4 Pro, which is a good sign for growing the console ecosystem. But with all that being said, they've kind of lost sight over this generation by being at the top of what really makes them successful, which is how much they supported their consumers in both the PS3 and PS4 generations. I think they did such an excellent job, at least in the back half of the PS3 and, you know, the back half of the PS4 generation, pumping out great games that were kind of off the beaten path. They tried out different stuff like Bloodborne, for example, and we just don't really see that anymore. They kind of relegate that to second party status, and they have timed exclusives now instead of full on exclusives. And I just think they need to spend the back half of this generation recalibrating to be more consumer focused and consumer friendly and actually talk to us more, because we're excited about PlayStation. We want to hear from it. And it feels like the relationship has been a little severed on their end for some reason. And I kind of get that it's because people are so toxic on Twitter, but they have the PlayStation blog. They should utilize it more and have their cool team members who are working on stuff like the Welcome Hub talk to us there. Instead of a paywalled blog where they're doing interviews like GameFile at Stephen Totillo's thing, I think it's cool he got that interview. It's just like, you don't have to go through all those steps, man. Like, give him his interview, right? But like, some of the stuff in the interview is definitely stuff that could have just been in a YouTube video, like how Valve does it, or on a PlayStation blog post. You know, like, you have these tools, just utilize them and talk to us. We're excited to hear from you, man. I'm talking to Sony as if it's a real person, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, I think it's been good overall. The cadence has been solid from PlayStation. I think there's room to improve, and it shows good signs that they're moving in the right direction, which is all I think anyone wanted to see. Anyway, that brings me to the second news story here, which I'm actually really excited to talk about. If you didn't know, your PS5 has rest mode, and if you're sitting there saying, of course the PS5 has rest mode, the PS4 had rest mode, and every other device now has rest mode. Apparently 50% of the people who use the PlayStation 5 do not use rest mode. So when they're done gaming, they fully shut down their console until it's the next time they want to use it. And Sony apparently is confused about these stats. They're like, why would anyone not use this great feature we've developed? And I can tell you exactly why. So I know that if you have a PlayStation 5, you have been presented with the screen that tells you the console was not shut down properly, and then it has to rebuild the database. And honestly, it is a very scary screen. It's low resolution. It looks like things are broken. You think the console is completely rebuilding itself from the inside out, like you did something wrong. It actually gives you like a little bit of guilt when you turn your console on and you see that somehow it lost power throughout the night or whenever the last time you used it, and it's mad at you because it wasn't shut down correctly. And it only, of course, does that if it's in rest mode. If you fully turn your console off, like set it to completely off and unplug it, then you're fine. If you move it downstairs or upstairs, or, you know, your power cycles, because power companies are terrible these days, the next time you turn your console on, you're only going to be greeted with a boot up screen, and, you know, you're going to be able to not have guilt over your console power cycling while it was in rest mode, which apparently dramatically can screw it up. Also, another reason is I think a lot of people still have it hardwired into them that when these things are off instead of in rest mode or on, they'll last longer. I know there's people out there who just leave their PlayStation running forever, like they don't even put it in rest mode, and they'll turn off the automatic rest mode, and then they'll just turn off their TV so that the next time they come back to it, they can just turn the TV on and unpause the game. I don't know why you're doing that when rest mode exists, because it takes 2 seconds to boot out of rest mode. But on top of that, getting from a powered off state into the PS5 dashboard is so much quicker than it was in the PS4 generation. It takes seconds now, like because of the SSD or something, or whatever changes they made in the overall hardware, whether it's the CPU, the GPU, or whatever, or the RAM maybe, or the SSD, whatever they did makes it boot up from the powered off state so quickly that I think a lot of people might think that their PS5 is in rest mode when it's not. But it is a weird stat because rest mode is great. My PS5 that I got at launch, it's sitting upstairs in my Warhammer desk. I use it as the one that I record all of my operating system footage on, because the built-in screen recording doesn't work when you're on the home screen, so I had to connect my Elgato to it. I use that PS5 the least, so that's the one I record with. It's still kicking, man. Like, the fan never turns on. It boots up extremely quickly. It never has issues. It never never overheats, frame rates never drop, it never feels too hot. I check the air coming out the back of it, it's usually cool. Like I bought that thing in 2020 and there's crazy stuff going on in the supply chain. So that's the only time in history where I feel like a company would be a little bit justified with having a few bunk consoles. But my launch unit is going strong. And since I moved it up there, I haven't had any of the weird Wi-Fi issues I was having in my living room. My other two consoles, my PS5 Slim and Pro, they're working just fine. The Blu-ray drives are working excellently on both of them. So yeah, like I don't think there's any reason in this generation to not use rest mode. So if you're one of the 50% out there, this is like a come to Jesus moment for you, man. Like you can use rest mode. It's fine. You can put your games in sleep mode and then come back to them and get right back into them and everything will be fine. Your PS5, I'm not going to say guaranteed because nothing's a guarantee, but like it's as close to a guarantee as you can get that your PS5 will remain healthy, stable, and fine if you just use rest mode. Like it's crazy. Anyway, that brings me to the third topic of today's video, which is that Sony has graced us with the Midnight Black collection. And if you watched my video on this leaking last year, you know I have a bone to pick with Sony on this front. I was waiting for years to get a DualSense Edge in black. I was so excited. I love my DualSense Edge upstairs. I wanted one down here for the basement. And then they come in from the side and announce the 30th anniversary controller. And it just totally changed my life. I really wanted that controller and I thought about it when I was pre-ordering it. I'm like, it is selling at a little bit of a premium. Is it worth it knowing that the black edition is coming soon? I ultimately made the call to get that. And now that I see this black edition DualSense Edge, I'm like, I wish I waited for the black one and the 30th anniversary because I think it's worth for me. I know it's expensive and stupid, okay? Don't yell at me for this. It's worth it for me personally, as someone who plays on two different PS5s, to have a DualSense Edge for both. I don't want to carry one up and down stairs. I don't want to have to reconnect it to my console with the stupid USB cord. I just want two DualSense Edges. 3, extremely excessive. If I got 3, you could yell at me. But like having a black one in a 30th anniversary edition, my life would be so much better. I know the grass is always greener, but like, come on, man. Black is the coolest color. Anyway, that's coming out. So if you missed out on the 30th anniversary Edge, you're going to get a cooler black one. Nothing to complain about there. They also refreshed the Pulse Elite and Pulse Explorer. The MSRPs are all remaining the same. So, you know, you don't have to feel bad if you waited. I would not buy the Pulse Explorer. They are terrible. If you want gaming earbuds, the SteelSeries gaming buds are bar none the best. They fit in your ears. They're comfortable. They come with a USB-C adapter. They also work with Bluetooth so you can listen to stuff off your phone while you're gaming. They work great with the Steam Deck because of that USB-C adapter. No complaints. Battery life is excellent. The case is small and slim profile. Not as small as an AirPods case, but like close enough. I've tried every gaming earbud out there. They are by far the best from every perspective, like any metric: sound quality, battery life, quality overall, ear fit, perfect across the board. Do not buy the Pulse Explorer. They are not worth $250, I promise you. There's also a black PlayStation Portal, and man, they are just working their ass off trying to get me to buy one of these things. I'm still holding out because my Steam Deck does the same thing better, and it has an OLED screen. If I didn't have a Steam Deck OLED, I would buy the black Portal. I know a lot of you are. They are apparently selling way more of these things still than they thought they would. I'm glad to see handheld successful. And finally, we're getting Slim and Pro black plates. This is where they're going to get me. I'm going to buy the black plates, even though my Pro sits behind my TV. I'm at the very least going to buy the Slim plates because that sits on my desk. I got a whole black aesthetic going on down here. All my tech is black. Everything is razored out. I got the Razer soundbar. I got a black monitor. I got the Razer USB-C hub. I want it to match with my cool PS5 sitting on my desk, so I will buy those plates. All of this stuff goes up for pre-order on January 16th and then comes out on February 20th. MSRPs are exactly the same, except for the DualSense Edge. If you're in Europe, they actually lowered the price, but I think it was higher there than it was in the US, so check your local retailer for pricing on that stuff. Let me know if you're buying any of it down in the comments below. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.